here. Whoops. All right, let's see if I can do it this way tonight. Let's just give this a shot, shall we? Woohoo. All right, so I'm going to see if we can make this work this time so I don't have to actually have the PowerPoint editing view done. Let's see if this works. All right, so we've done a lot in the first 4 weeks. I know you guys are anxious to hear, okay, but let's get to the, what's going on with language development. And we'll get there, I promise. But you have to know this stuff first. Otherwise, nothing else seems to make sense as we move through. So cognition, intellect. What role does intellect have in the development of language? Well, let's go back to that guy, Jean Piaget. We talked about him when we were talking about nature and nurture. He was a cognitivist. Okay, he's a biologist and a psychologist by trade. And so he studied knowledge, right? He studied how do we learn. And he actually developed what we call the theory of cognitive development. And it has, whoops, what happened to that slide? Hello, there we go. Yeah, hang on, let's back that up a little bit. That got a little wonky on me. All right, so the theory of cognitive development has 4 stages. Sensory motor period, which is about birth, is from birth to about 2 years old. The pre-operational stage, which starts, right after the sensory motor period, so a little bit after 2 or around 2 until about 7. And then concrete age starts around 1st grade or when the pre-operational stops and moves on through adolescence. And then the formal operations goes from adolescence or is in adolescence up through where learning no longer occurs, okay? We say about. Why about? Well, because every child enters these stages at different times or leaves these stages at different times, depending on their own individual personality and growing stages and growing abilities. The principles that underlie the development of or the movement through these stages is 4 basic principles. It's the principle of schemata, assimilation, accommodation, and equilibrium. So, schemata. Schemata is the way we organize information that we are learning. So, if a child learns words like apple, orange, cherry, they learn to put them in the group called fruit. They learn that dog, cat, and bunny all belong in a group called animals. Now, as we get older, our schemata become more and more specific and more detailed. But that's basically how it all begins. Well, how do you develop more complicated schemata? Well, it's through the next 3 processes: assimilation, accommodation, and equilibrium. So assimilation is, all right, they've got this category that's called animals, and then they are introduced to a giraffe. And they look at the giraffe and go, well, it moves, it makes noise, it has eyes and ears, just like puppies, bunnies, and cats do. Therefore, it belongs in the category of animals. So we find enough similarities between the things that are already in our schemata and this new thing, and that new thing gets sorted into the existing schemata. But sometimes they come across something like a Venus flytrap, and they'll say, well, it moves, but it doesn't make noise, doesn't appear to have any legs, has no eyes or ears, therefore it doesn't have enough of the same characteristics as animal, so it's going to go in a different category. I'm going to create a new one, and that new category is plant. Okay, and so that's called accommodation. When you can't find enough similarities between this new thing and an existing schema, you develop a new schema. Equilibrium is the process where you find a balance between those. You can't create a new schema for everything you encounter. In fact, children with language impairments actually do this. Sometimes they do create too many schemas, therefore they cannot retrieve information well. Why? Because it's not stored efficiently. They've stored each thing as a unique entity, and therefore they can't tell you how things are similar or how things fit together, because they have a new schema for each individual item or thing that they encounter. So that's a poorly developed schema. They didn't use the process of equilibrium well, and they didn't go through assimilation and accommodation. They simply accommodated to everything. So the balance of equilibrium is finding these things, finding a schemata that either it belongs to, or deciding that this is where a new schemata needs to be created. And that is through the process of equilibrium. Assimilation, you can think of as look for the root word of similar, meaning the things that are similar go in the same category. And accommodation, I look for like when you make accommodations at a hotel, there's plenty of rooms, and each new arrival goes in a new room. So it's kind of a little cheat sheet, mnemonic way for you to remember what the differences are. So when we're a child, we have pretty big schemata. So we might call them butterflies, all right? And butterflies are anything that has 4 wings that flutters, or 2 wings and flutters, and is colorful and looks bigger than a fly. All right. Whereas when we get older, we might have the differences between moth, dragonfly, and butterfly. You might have the differences between North American butterflies and those found in Africa. You might have moths that are found only in wooded areas, and moths that are common to desert places. So as you get older, the schemata that we develop becomes much more precise and well defined. That's as our language grows and it becomes more specific. So let's look at the sensory motor period. Remember, that's birth to 2 years old, okay, or thereabouts. So what happens during the sensory motor period? Well, there are 6 things that are key to the sensory motor period. That is the concepts of object permanence, causality, and means ends, and the behaviors of imitation, play, and communication. You'll be asked that repeatedly. These are important because without these, we don't develop language, okay? What happens in the sensory motor period is almost all of our movement is reflexive, or all of our behaviors are reflexive and motor based. In other words, we learn to grasp, pick up, crawl, walk, roll over, sit up, feed ourselves, drink from a cup, run, climb, jump, hop. So all of these things happen in the birth to 2 stage. Our behaviors start out reflexive. So the Babinski reflex or the tonic reflex. So you put a baby on your lap and its legs stiffen and they stand on your lap, holding your head up. Those things all start in the sensory motor period. Cognition grows extremely rapidly. So the intellect, the brain, the neurological development of a baby grows very quickly in the first 2 years of life. And they gather information by their senses. So what they taste, feel, see, hear, smell, right? And so that's why everything goes in their mouth. They can taste it, they can feel it, they've looked at it, they're holding it, they grasp it, and they learn and process information by the way things feel, by their hand and by their mouth, and how things taste. So they gather information through what they see, what they hear, those 5 senses. Object permanence is the idea that starts to develop where I look for my pacifier when it's missing. When I'm very, very young, a little tiny infant does not look for a pacifier when it's missing. They don't even know it's still there. That idea of object permanence means that they get the idea that something has stuck around. Oh, okay, so you hide a part of the pacifier under the blanket. They see a part of the pacifier sticking out. They'll go and get it. Ooh, great, I found my pacifier. Why? Because I saw a part of it. It goes even further that eventually the pacifier can be in mom's purse. Mom takes the pacifier away, dumps it in her purse, and the baby goes to get the pacifier out of the purse. Why? Because they know the pacifier still exists. It's the idea of how children's development of understanding emerges. So causality is I do something and there's a reaction in my environment. So I have baby at the high chair, takes their bottle, drops it on the floor. Mom picks it up, gives it back to baby. Baby takes bottle, drops it on the floor. Mom picks it up, puts it back on the table. Mom comes at baby with a spoonful of peas. Baby turns his head because they know if they turn their head, that spoon's not going in their mouth. It's that idea of I do something in my environment and it causes a reaction. Means ends is I now have to do something in my environment to achieve a certain task. So mom takes the pacifier, puts it in her purse, puts her purse on the counter. Well, I climb on the chair, reach into the purse, and get the pacifier. So I now use a tool or a means to get something to happen in my environment. So these three things together are how a child develops that idea of things exist when I don't see them, things respond when I do something to them, and I can interact with my environment and cause things to happen. Behaviors that occur in the sensory motor period are imitation, play, and communication. Imitation is that idea, that remember the behaviorists said that language is learned through imitation. And if you've ever watched a newborn baby imitate daddy, daddy sticks out his tongue, and little infant sticks out their tongue too. Babies are born with that innate desire to imitate and ability to imitate. Daddy opens his mouth, baby opens their mouth. And even at the very young infancy stage, babies are able to do this. They imitate play. They imitate our gestures. Deferred imitation is they see us do something, and then later on, away from that model, away from the situation, they do it again. So they see mommy stirring a pot, and then in the morning, they're playing in the kitchen, and they empty the dishwasher. Mommy empties the dishwasher, puts a pot on the floor, and baby says, "Me stir," and takes a wooden spoon and pretends to stir in the pot. They are imitating a behavior that they saw happen earlier. Mom combs her hair with a brush, and baby combs their hair with a brush. What deferred imitation is not. Deferred imitation is not the imitation of a temper tantrum. I have repeatedly had students report that, well, that's deferred imitation. It's actually not. Children do not learn temper tantrums by watching other children have temper tantrums. That's not a deferred imitation. They don't go, oh, that baby got what they wanted because they threw themselves on the ground, therefore I'm going to do that. That is not an example of deferred imitation. Children are inclined to cry because children are inclined to cry. Children want what they want because they are egocentric. So deferred imitation is a behavior: brushing the dog, stirring a pot, starting the car. So they use, their keys to start their little orange and yellow Flintstone car. Trying to touch the remote and then pointing it at the TV because they've seen daddy pick up this box and point it at the TV and a screen comes on. That's deferred imitation. Play. Play is the other behavior that we see in this age. So they like to build things up, knock them over, open things, play peekaboo. How big are you? Baby's so big. They want to do finger plays and sing songs, and they enjoy the idea of play. Play is a child's work and is crucial to development in the sensory motor period. Communication is the other behavior that we see emerging here. So we have those reflexive cries. They go to cooing. They go to babbling to first words to putting words together into simple sentences. So communication is also what we see happening in the sensory motor period. The next few slides you'll see that talk about each sort of individual month or time period in the baby's first couple of years. You don't need to know specifics about what happens here. These are kind of some generalities of what you see happening at approximately these ages. Okay, talks about when object permanence starts to occur, The idea at 4 to 8 months old is when baby in the nursery is going to cry when someone else holds them or mommy drops them off. Why? Because in the birth to 3-month-old stage, baby didn't know when mommy left because they didn't have object permanence. Though they might have known that she was missing, they didn't realize she was still there when she left. Now at 4 to 8 months, ooh, you're going to get some tears because they are well aware that mommy will come back if I scream loud enough. Why? Because I know mommy still exists. 8 to 12 months old. The most important piece for us in this course is that you need to know this is when first words occur. They are intentional with their sound construction. So when they say mama, they actually mean the person who is mama. When they say baba, it's not a random babble. They actually mean their bottle. 12 to 18 months old, words are emerging daily. And 18 to 24 months old is when they are going to start really showing us that they are thinking, that they show means ends, that they solve problems. If you try and hide something from a 22-month-old, they will go looking for it. If they've seen a cookie and you try to get it out of their sight, they're going to remember that there was a cookie there and that they are going to do everything they can to find it. They start to use keys, mommy's keys to try and open doors. They use daddy's cell phone and they pick it up and will babble or talk into the phone trying to call daddy. Private speech is that self-talk, that thing you do at the stoplight, when you're talking to yourself. Well, it starts early. Private speech happens even at the tail end of the sensory motor period, where babies start to talk while they're playing with toys, or they talk to their toys, using language purposefully with intent for communication. All right, so that is cognition, and next week we get to start talking about babbling and cooing and first words and what all those lovely pieces of language development look like. So have a great night, and I will see you next week.